In a world filled with superstition and omens, there are few dates that strike the fear into the hearts of many, like the date Friday the 13th. But what is it about this particular day and the number 13 that has woven this web of fear and fascination for many centuries? Join me as I take you on this journey to unravel the history and the superstition surrounding this duo of dates, Friday and the number 13, and the huge significant events that could occur in the future on Friday the 13th, including Friday, October 13th. Will it be different than any other day? Again, join me as we wander into the world of Friday the 13th. This story begins in the Middle Ages when superstition ran rampant throughout. Many believed that the number 12, not the number 13, but the number 12 represented completeness and harmony. We have 12 months in a year, 12 zodiac signs, the 12 apostles in the Holy Bible. But it was the number 13 that was seen as an outlier, a bad omen, and a representative of bad luck. We can turn the pages of the Holy Bible to chapter 13 of the book of Revelation, which is about the great beast, the Antichrist. This story goes all the way back to the year 1307, whereas on Friday, October 13th, 1307, King Philip IV of France ordered for the arrest of the Knights Templar, a very powerful and secretive order. So this day has become etched with fear of Friday the 13th, going all the way back to that historic memory. As centuries passed, superstitions around the number 13 and Friday the 13th multiplied, just like fear of walking under a ladder, breaking mirrors, and opening umbrellas indoors became commonplace in everybody's common home. The reputation of the number 13 even led to triskaidekaphobia. Say that 3 times fast. Triskaidekaphobia is actually the irrational fear of the number 13. The number 13 even has cause of concern when it comes to architecture. In the early 1900s, when New York was starting to build skyscrapers, architects were wary of creating buildings where there were 13 floors or higher. They argued that the height of the buildings would cast permanent shadows on the pavements and cause property values to crash. They were proven wrong, of course, and given it today, New York has the most valuable real estate in the world. However, some buildings do still skip the 13th floor altogether, going straight from the number 12 to the number 14. There have even been buildings with an empty 13th floor with elevators that don't stop there. Many hotels and motels throughout the world even skip the number 13 for the room number. We even have horror movies that push fear of the date Friday the 13th, like the movie Friday the 13th. Son. We also have movies like The 13th Floor and 13 Ghosts. Perhaps even Trump is a little bit superstitious because Trump Towers in New York City has a 13th floor, just like every other building in New York City, whether they want to admit it or not. But the 13th floor of Trump Tower is referred to as a mezzanine. A mezzanine is basically an empty, useless floor between 2 other floors. The Sherry in New York City not only skips the 13th floor, but it also skips the rooms with the number 13 to appease their superstitious guests. What is really interesting is during Friday the 13th, it is estimated that around $800 to $900 million in revenue is lost because of people who are afraid to fly or afraid to do business on Friday the 13th. Being the letter M is the 13th letter of the alphabet, many buildings actually use the letter M instead of the number 13 in place on elevators. Some people would believe that the number 13 or living in a house number 13 is actually bad luck, And I beg to differ, because in numerology, the number 13 breaks down to the number 4. And purchasing a property with the number 4 vibration actually happens to be a great investment and good luck. My home actually breaks down to a 4. However, my address is not 13, and in numerology, we add the numbers together to break them down. So again, buying a house with number 13 or that breaks down to a number 4 is good luck and a great investment. A study conducted back in 2007 showed that 87% of Americans could care less about staying on floor number 13 or in room number 13. However, elevator manufacturer Maori Elevators states that 85% of their elevators that they make do not have the number 13 on the elevator panel. So is there any evidence to support the claims and the fears revolved around the number 13 and especially the date Friday the 13th? Psychologists believe that the belief that Friday the 13th is bad luck is actually rooted in our minds, basically meaning that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that you're going to get bad luck, of course you're going to notice your life filled with bad luck. But exact opposite, if you notice the blessings and miracles in your life each and every day, the more blessings and miracles that you will receive. This is all similar to the rule in black arts and dark magic. If you believe that you are cursed, then you are cursed. And that's why those in dark magic will leave things on your doorstep or even tell you that you're cursed, just to ensure that the mind over matter takes effect. It might be a surprise to some of you, and surprisingly then, some people actually do embrace Friday the 13th as being a lucky day. As a matter of fact, they challenge the superstition and turn it into an opportunity of good fortune and good luck by getting married on Friday the 13th. As we peer into the depths of history and superstition, we find that the number 13 and Friday the 13th are both shrouded in mystery. Whether you fear them or whether you just laugh them off, the power over our imagination still remains strong. So, the next time a black cat crosses your path on Friday the 13th especially, or you find yourself face to face with the number 13, remember that superstitions are as old as humanity itself, and their real power lies within our belief and our belief system. Again, the law of attraction. If you believe it's going to happen, it's likely going to happen. Friday the 13th and the number 13, a duo that has captivated our minds and imaginations for many centuries. Whether you seek fortune or whether you avoid this day altogether, remember that the power of superstition ultimately rests in the stories that we tell ourselves. As the ancient scrolls remind us, in the end, it's our choices and our actions that shape our fate, not necessarily the numbers or the days on the calendar. While Friday the 13th and the number 13 are both associated with superstitions and bad luck, it's also important to note that tragic events can occur on any day, not just Friday the 13th. However, there have been some very notable dates to pay attention to where big events throughout history have occurred. Here's some of the examples of some of the events that have occurred on Friday the 13th. I find it even more interesting that many of these take place on Friday, October 13th, which is just a day away. Once again, we have the date Friday, October 13th, 1307, when King Philip IV of France sent for the arrest of thousands of Knights of the Templar. Many of those knights were tortured and executed, and this event led to the downfall of the Templar Order, or at least that's what they tell us. On Friday, October 13th, 1972, a plane crashed in the Andes Mountains, which occurred involving Air Force Flight 571. This later became known famously as the Alive Crash, where survivors had to resort to cannibalism in order to survive. There's even a movie called Alive, based on this incident that happened on Friday, October 13th, 1972. That same date where the plane crash occurred in the Andes Mountains on Friday, October 13, 1972, there was another plane crash. This time in Moscow, a plane crashed to the ground with 174 people aboard. All of them perished. Maybe this explains the fear of flying around Friday the 13th. On Friday, October 13th, 1989, we have what is called the Friday the 13th mini crash that occurred in the world's financial markets. A crash in the stock exchange in London caused a chain reaction in global markets, resulting in a substantial drop in stock prices. I would not at all be surprised to see that happen again this coming Friday, October 13th, because we are in an 8 vibrational month. And that is all about money and finances in the economy. And in my previous predictions, I predicted that there would be big falls of stocks in the economy in the month of October. I would not at all be surprised to see that begin on Friday the 13th. So many events have occurred on a Friday the 13th, like Friday, January 13th, 2012, when the Costa Concordia disaster occurred in Italy. The ship Costa Concordia ran aground and partially sank off the coast of Italy on Friday the 13th. This tragic event, of course, led to the loss of many lives. On Friday, November 13th, 2015, we had the Paris attacks, a series of coordinated terrorist attacks that occurred in Paris, France, on Friday, the 13th of November, 2015. These attacks claimed by ISIS resulted in the loss of 133 people and many, many others who were injured. So would this bring future attacks? Because they are in my predictions as well. I predicted and had visions of similar attacks occurring in Paris in the near future. Could this occur on Friday the 13th? I would not at all be surprised. On Friday, January 13th, 1939, Australia was dealing with the Black Friday brush fires, as they referred to them as, with the loss of 71 lives and the destruction of numerous homes. Friday, August 13th, 1971, we have the Great Barrington Tornado outbreak, a series of tornadoes that struck Massachusetts, United States on Friday the 13th in August 1971. These tornadoes caused extensive damage and resulted in several fatalities as well. And how could any of us forget Friday, March 13th, 2020? This is when the pandemic was declared by the World Health Organization. And even though it wasn't a singular tragic event, it still led to a tragic time period globally, and it all began and was announced on Friday the 13th, of course. It is important for us to note that these events are not necessarily inherently tied to the date itself, but rather they happen to occur on Friday the 13th, perhaps by coincidence. Friday the 13th is considered to be an unlucky day in some cultures, but there is actually no scientific evidence to support the idea that it is inherently more prone to tragic events than any other day. As I have said in the past, and we have seen proven again and again, there are other dates that are more significant, like 11 days in numerology, which would be the date the 11th and the 29th. Why the 29th? Because we always add the two numbers together, and 9 plus 2 is an 11. So those dates have been most significant, along with the date the 22nd. And even more surprisingly, a number that's used allegedly by the Freemason Illuminati is the number 14. So we'll have to keep an eye on this coming weekend and see whether it will be Friday the 13th massacre, perhaps, or even Saturday the 14th. I'm going to say likely it's going to be both. Why? We're in the month of October, friends. October is a big time in season when it comes to the dark arts, evil magic, and those who worship the beast. And they do major sacrifices, and they don't always do that on an altar. The earth, the planet, is their big altar. And that's when they do events where they fly their flags ever so falsely in order to make big sacrifices to their beast and their god. It's just a fact of the matter. Now that we have 2 eclipses happening in the month of October as well, this is extremely symbolic, as I've been warning you in my past predictions, especially the Ring of Fire eclipse that starts on the 14th. So, I would tell you, if you were to worry, you shouldn't worry at all, but if you were to worry about an upcoming date this October, I'd be more concerned with October 14th than I would the 13th. I'd be concerned with both, regardless. And not because there's any potential that that date itself is going to be significant to big events. Every day is significant to big events. The dates, the 14th of any month, has been widely used by globalists to pull off their flags that they fly ever so falsely. The number 14 is also referred to quite often in the Holy Bible. And the 14th day would be the day of the Lord's Passover. Perhaps one of the main reasons that the Freemasons use and utilize the number 14, aside from the master numbers 11, 22, and 33. Again, I would say that the 14th is going to be the most significant along with the 28th of October because 14 times 2 is 28. And again, they use all those numbers, but most importantly are the two eclipses that are hitting us in the month of October during their sacrifice season. So of course they're going to utilize this as that way of doing things. Not only that, the extremists are going to use this against us as well. Even though some of these, not all of them, but some of these are paid groups backed by, of course, globalists' agenda, all to rule in their New World Order. Let me tell you a little bit about the Illuminati cards, why we're here. Of course, there's an Illuminati card that shows Friday the 13th. Why would there not be? Most of you who have been following me long enough know about the Illuminati cards. The Illuminati cards that are said to predict the future. And there are cards that were printed in 1992 and 93 that show the events that happened in 2001. How would they know that ahead of time? So is there an Illuminati card representing Friday the 13th? Well, of course there is. The card is actually titled Unlucky 13. And it shows the broken mirror, the tipped over salt, the black cat, and the calendar date, Friday the 13th. If you saw my video, The Great Purifier, then you would know the significance of Friday the 13th, Friday, April 13th, 2029, when the comet Apophis comes into our vision in the skies. A huge event. Is that the Friday the 13th that the Illuminati cards are talking about? Or are they talking about that date in general? For other things that might match with the cards. Like we have these cards here of Israel. I don't have all the cards, and I don't have these ones. I only have the ones that some of you have sent to me. But we have two cards for Israel that I found interesting. The first card you see here shows basically Israel with them guarding their wall and their gates with the star in the background. But the next Israel card is even more interesting, where if you look very closely at that, what's it look like to you without me even saying? Looks like Israel going into Gaza. That's what it appears to be anyway. You can make what you want out of it. The card that's most creepiest is this card right here, with the New World Order written right at the top of the card. We all know what their plans are. Well, I would hope you would know by now. You can look it up. They put it all in writing in things like Agenda 2030. I showed you this card not long ago of Hawaii. And the card of Hawaii shows a fire and them roasting somebody over it. Not cool. I warned you about the 28th of October. Of course, there's a card not for the 28th of October, but for the full moon. An Illuminati card for the full moon. And this is another thing. I'm going to show you the card. Hopefully you can see it closely without me saying it. But this is something we're going to be seeing very soon. There's also, of course, a card that represents jihad, which is the same as all those radical groups. That card goes along with the card with Israel, which is interesting. We see upheaval already taking place in that Illuminati card. And we have a card that says the purge. Isn't that what Israel's about to do with the strip? They're about to purge it, right? It's exactly correct. We can even go back in time. There's a card that shows an explosion of a lab. There's a card that shows masks and everything else that happened in 2020. There's a card that represents censorship. It's very, very interesting, the different cards that the Illuminati cards show, including the date Friday the 13th. What I would tell you the most important is to hold in the light all positive things flowing into your life and blessings and miracles. Yes, chaos is breaking out in the world, and I predicted that there would be two conflicts, major conflicts that would break out in the month of October. We already saw one happen with Israel. There's another to come. perhaps several. And perhaps that could lead to this Illuminati card coming into fruition. So therefore, the other thing that we need to do is just be prepared. Be prepared. Have a bag to go if you need to go, but have tons of food and things for survival. Gold and silver isn't going to do you any good if you don't have the food and all to survive, and the means to protect yourself and to protect your family. I would tell you to be extremely alert when you're out in public, especially where there's large crowds. On Tuesday's show, this past Tuesday, I told you about my visions of people being plowed over by vehicles and by trucks, especially in big cities, Chicago, New York City, but even over in the UK, France, and nobody's safe from this. This radical group is gathering together, especially after everything that's going on between Israel and what their move is right now. Their move right now is angering the Islamic community. This is their perfect opportunity to yell crimes against us, and to gather their people together, just like the Holy Bible and prophecy tells us about. And remember my visions that I told you about of this secret group of army gathering together between Turkey, Iraq, Iran. I've talked about it for years. Now we know that it exists. Spirit shows me visions of sleeper cells being ignited. I told you about these a while back. I warned you about these cells that were gathering because of the open borders here in the United States and other places as well, not just United States. They are posing an attack, another 911 attack, not just on the United States, but globally. We can prevent this by holding your country and the whole planet in love and light. Tuck it in the center of your heart. Be mindful and alert. Stay out of large group places. Avoid the protests, because some of these protests are purposely being formed so that they can pull off sick things, as you can imagine. I would also tell you to tune in on Tuesday, because I'll get more information after the weekend passes to see what happens and what's going on. But yes, two very significant dates coming up. Friday, October 13th, but even more significant is Saturday. On a positive level too, Saturday's new moon and eclipse is a great, powerful time to plant your intentions. That would be the best day ever to sit down, meditate, do prayer, pray for yourself, pray for the world, pray for your country, pray for your family. Hold it all in the light. Remember, that eclipse is powerful. Use it to your advantage, because we know the dark evil doers are going to use it to their advantage. And we got to fight them on those significant dates that are powerful, like the 14th. Not so much the 13th, but it will be, because the 13th will also be the 7th day of war, conflict over there in the Middle East. That would be symbolic as well. I would say that there's going to be some large things and shocking events that are going to come over this weekend. So be aware, be alert, be safe. And don't plug into the fear of what media is telling you. Just again, as long as you're mindful and know that you're safe and taken care of, you'll be safe and taken care of. Remember, every Tuesday I do predictions updates where we talk about world stories, how they align with predictions in prophecy, with new predictions each and every week. If you missed my October predictions, you're not going to want to miss that. And if you missed Tuesday's show, I talked about everything related to Israel and the Middle East. You're not going to want to miss that one either. If you want accurate predictions, prophecy, and truth, and you made it this far in the video, then you got to join the tribe, baby. Smash that subscribe. I thank you for clicking that like button. It helps get this information out to other people. And I just thank you and all my supporters who make this free content possible for everybody else. I couldn't do it without you, and I am forever grateful. With infinite love and gratitude. Until the next time, my beautiful friends, may your Friday be filled with joy and happiness, and may your 13 and your number 13 be a lucky number 13. Remember to be bold, be true, be kind. Be you. Why? Because you're freaking awesome. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste. Much love.